everybody, welcome to Blood Bowl. I'm Complacent Badger.
I'm Syracuse.
And if you're watching this, you might be part of the Fantasy League.
You might be.
Or...
You could be.
Yeah, or maybe looking into a Fantasy League.
Huh.
With our
Did you know that you could... I didn't know that you could do a Fantasy League on top of a Blood Bowl fantasy style thing.
Yeah, it's fantasy football.
Fantasy squared. I like it.
Yeah. We're making this quick little rundown to assist any of the, especially new fantasy coaches, if you have no familiarity with Blood Bowl, or if you're not familiar with the scoring system, and also to give you some tips on draft. So anybody who watches this is going to have probably a better time with their draft order.
That sounds like a good place to go, because I don't really understand the whole procedure, so I'm going to have to let you explain it to me a little bit. But.
Yeah, myself and Gimpy, our local statistician, have been working on this pretty much night and day for the last couple weeks. So unfortunately, SK has kind of been on the fringe of this. I've let him know what's happening, but he's going to be learning for the first time. But he's here because he has wonderful tips on players and whatnot.
That's not true. It's because I'm handsome.
That's why. And that's why we are a radio show.
Perfect.
All right. So going into it, the scoring system that we will be using, there's going to be 4 different stats that players will have. First is going to be passing. The way that you score that is every completed pass that basically the ball leaves the hand of the player and actually succeeds in landing into the intended receiver will gain 1 point.
Okay.
Every 10 yards that ball flies throughout the entire season, throughout the game, whatnot, gives you 1 additional point. So every 10 yards is a point. And then if you throw an interception, basically to an opposing side, I don't know why I'm explaining interceptions. If you're watching this and you don't know what interceptions are, I'm sorry. But negative 2 points for that.
Okay.
Then we go into rushing. The ones for scoring rushings, we have every 10 rushing yards. Now, for those of you who know fantasy football in particular, rushing yards are done a little bit different in the Blood Bowl League. Rushing stats are any time that a character has forward momentum while carrying the ball. This is even after they receive. It's considered rushing yards. Those are not pass rushing yards or anything like that.
Okay.
So again, every 10, 1 point. Every reception, so if a player, as the intended receiver, from the same team catches the ball, he also gains a point.
Okay.
And an interception, if a player is able to pick a ball out of the air that was not intended to him, that was thrown by the other team, he will gain 2 points.
Okay.
The scoring stat is simply, if you get a touchdown, you get 3 points.
So that's standard for Blood Bowl.
Yes, kind of mirroring it a little bit, and it turned out to really balance the numbers really well, so we stuck with it. It was nice.
Okay.
And the 4th stat, which is completely different from any other fantasy league, is the brutalizing stat. 1 point for KOs. KOs are any time that the character will pop up with a bell over his head and be ejected from the pitch for a short time or the rest of the game, depending on various rules. An injury is any time that a player suffers worse than a KO, but less than a death.
Okay.
That is worth 3 points to the player inflicting it. And then, if a player inflicts a death, that is 6 points to that player.
Okay, and that includes, it's the same as Blood Bowl, is even if they regen or they apothecary, the original death counts?
Yes, it would still count because it still tracks the stat. Things to be in consideration for. It's very much the similar as in Blood Bowl, where it's only if block dice were thrown.
Okay.
If you kill somebody because they tripped after a dodge, that does not count. You have to be the one that actually puts the fist in the face.
Okay, so it's only for the actor. So if I throw dice against you, and I throw red dice against you, right? And then I end up dying.
That still counts, because
still counts.
The only requirement is that block dice were thrown.
Okay.
So even if you inflict it on yourself, it still is the other player actually killing you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask just one more follow-up. So I roll 2 attacker downs, I die, does that player get the death, or it's no points because it was my turn to throw the dice?
The opposing player is the one that gains the death.
Okay.
As long as the blocked dice were thrown, whoever is the one not receiving it will get the points.
Tracking. All right, I like that.
Yep. And if there's any questions on it, you can post in the comments. If you're in the league and you know me personally, obviously you can ask me any questions whatsoever if that is too confusing for you. Moving away from the rules, because for other things such as waiver wires, trades, and things like that, I'm going to assume that commissioners will have enough knowledge to where they're able to do that themselves, so that will be we won't be taking care of that. That's up to you guys how you're going to run it. Our suggestion, just real quick, how we're likely going to be running it is that we will have kind of a ranking for the waiver wire, and that will move as people pick up in the waiver.
Okay.
Going specifically to the players, the difference for Blood Bowl versus a normal fantasy football league is that not only do players matter, but coaching matters, because coaches are controlling the players. So you have to weigh that. It's not just about points. It's about how you expect the player to, or the coach, to be able to handle a situation as well, and what they're going to do. We'll go ahead and start with the Nordic kneecappers here, Kilo here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, looking at the stats from last season, you actually have one of the highest in points from last season. Your Gear Nordic Sun received 83 points last season. For everybody else, the player average across the league was 16.4 points. So
well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you were well above that with Gear Nordic Sun. And the top 10 average, basically the average of top 10 players of last season, the average was 67.8.
Nice.
So Gear Nordic Sun was well over that.
Go Gear.
He is likely to be a good draft candidate. Things to consider, though. Sierra Kilo is considered probably one of the better coaches in the league, so he is a pretty reliable coach to make sure players are doing things. However, Geared Nordic Sun is getting towards the end of his experience cycle.
True.
There could potentially be more handoffs to other players. Geared Nordic Sun may not have an 83-point season this time.
True. Based on the way that I intend to play, it's going to be interesting. So without having a lot more insight into kind of what's going on in my brain and what I have planned for my team, it'll be tough to determine whether or not he's going to have a repeat season or he's going to be kind of on the semi-retired bench and only playing when I need him to play.
Also take in consideration, I'm going to assume that most people watching this do not have a lot of Blood Bowl knowledge. His stat right here, armor value. This is going to be one of the more important stats for non-coach players to understand. Armor value is basically his stat that means the higher it is, the less likely he is to die.
Yeah, and seven's pretty low.
Yeah, 7 is
in the Blood Bowl league.
Yeah, in Blood Bowl, 8 is about average. 7 is considered below that. If you want specific chance without adding in any extra rules, to see if he's going to get injured or killed, you have to roll 2 6-sided dice, and if added together, it exceeds the armor value. He is potentially going to be injured or killed.
Right.
So that's something to consider, that if somebody puts a hit out on Gear Nordic Sun, that could be a player that ends up dead on your roster.
Okay, fair play.
Other characters to look for on here, Puppy Dog Face, Not My Son, was a pretty good player. Did not make the top 10 last season. However, Puppy Dog did score 45 points. So well above the player average, slightly below the top 10 average.
Okay, not too bad.
Another good one to look at is Brett, who actually did make it. He was number 9 in the top 10, and he was the strongest brutalizer of last season.
Go Brett.
Yes, edging out the Hell King from a team we'll see shortly. Brett is a good pick. He's got a higher armor value. His job is to hurt, and he generally does hurt. The issue being is that he has certain things about him, specifically that he's kind of an untamable animal, so he doesn't always work for SK on his team, and I'll let him kind of go into a little bit more of why Brett is a pain.
Yeah, so you have those skills on the right-hand side that are highlighted in yellow there. So Loner and Wild Animal mean that I have to roll dice prior to him actually succeeding in action. So the chances of him making the play that I ask him to play is restricted. Now, to counteract that, he does have that Mighty Blow and Juggernaut, which means that he has a higher tendency to penetrate the armor value of the opposing player. So when he does hit, he tends to hit hard. But that's the lim fac in this. Is the limiting factor is he's not always going to do what I ask him to do, which means that I only use him in positions where it doesn't necessarily make or break my drive if he succeeds or fails.
Exactly. Other good ones, real quick. Bulldog Nordic Sun scored 45 points last season, just like Puppy Dog Face, not my son. 49 points came from Cole Nordic Sun. Another good one to potentially look at. High-leveled lineman. Might not see much game this season, again for the same reason why Gear won't, but might be a good pick, especially early in the season when he's still trying to build stuff up.
True.
And everybody else scored close to average, with the exception being Clang Nordic Sun and Pierre Nordic Sun, who was a pretty new player. Carl Winslow III, I would suggest nobody draft him because he will likely die.
he's a marked man.
Yeah. And then right here, we'll talk about it real quick. Any player that in this video that you see this little symbol next to may not be a good early draft pick because that player will not be in the first game. An injury means they will not be playing in the next game coming up. So you may want to avoid that. A good player, so if you do pick him up, he's useful, you just won't be able to use him immediately.
Fair.
Alright, going to Axon Jackson and the Crazy Eights. A skilled coach, sometimes unfocused, and still makes minor mistakes on stat building. That shouldn't affect too much, but if it's a difference between the exact same points on two players that you think are just neck and neck, you may want to be cautionary around this coach. Not that he's bad, just finicky sometimes. However, his players are very good. Helgrim Blood King was number 10 in the top 10, second best brutalizer, just right behind Brett.
Yeah. So here's what you're looking at here is the movement, the ball movement production on a coach like this isn't superior, but when you go into the brutalizing stuff with this high strength team, that's where you're going to get your points. So if you're looking at somebody who can routinely get a couple KOs and maybe an injury, you're looking at averaging maybe four points per game. Then this is a coach that can deliver something like that. So a good utility player.
Yeah, and probably one of the higher team, or any player in here would have a higher potential of getting that real lucky kill in there to set you over the top with that 6 points.
True.
His best player on his team was Karn, with 62 points last season, his primary ball runner. Breaking down his stats, he actually got 18 points from scoring, 3 from passing, 38 from rushing, and 3 from brutalizing. So you're looking at a player, the Bloodletter Demon, that managed to get points in everything.
And that's what you want to look for, is that very robust player. Somebody who's not afraid to get involved in a little bit of a fray and can still move the ball and score as well.
Yep, and for the most part, about half this team right here scored right at average or a little higher. A couple of level 1 guys were pretty shy, but those are new players, and you can expect them to start getting points this season.
Cool.
Next up, we have the Snarl 2 Smashes with... it's Mass Rack with the Snarl 2 Smashes. This is a team that has proven itself. This is their 3rd season. I would say that this coach suffers from a little bit of inconsistency as well. but when he's on, and he can win a lot of games, and he is generous with handoffs and touchdowns with his players.
Right, because those supplemental points are going to be important.
Yeah, his best player is by far Moglop, his star blitzer at level 5. Playing against him was pretty tough, right?
Oh, you better believe it. You never know what that guy's going to do. He's either going to grab the ball and run it down the pitch, or just plow right through some of your guys. So
yeah,
he's one of those high utility players who'll play either sides of that.
Yep, Moglop ended up getting 5th place last season in fantasy points with a whopping 67.
Nice.
He had 21 in scoring, 42 in rushing, and 4 in brutalizing. So
good stuff.
Yeah, pretty good. He's got armor value 9. He's going to be staying in there. The only thing I would caution, again, is a level 5 player, so may not see the ball as often as last season, but I've not known Masrack to switch up his plays too much either, so you might actually see Moglop get into level 6 and getting deep into level 6, because it takes a long time to hit 7.
Fair play.
Other players to consider, maybe Gorfak. Gorfak was pretty good last season at 39 points, most of that coming from scoring and brutalizing. Decent player. He's going to be, between the mighty blow and tackle, he's going to probably get a lot of injuries out there.
Right, that's great. He's going to go after some of those tricksy elves.
Mm-hmm. And Jazzquire, his up-and-coming thrower, actually got 29 points last season, despite only coming in halfway through the season.
Yeah, which is good. You see that consistent ability to pass the ball, that movement is going to be a good indicator of high potential points in a fantasy-style league.
Yeah, Jazzquire, probably a pretty good draft pick for this season. You're looking at probably anywhere between 3 to 5 average points every game. Moving on to the Sunday Speedwalkers with Ducky Shoes. Now, this is a team full of points. You've got...
Yeah, this is going to be all over, huh?
Yeah, most players got above average. The exception being some of her linemen did not. But we could see that changing through necessity, because I can see, as you can see, armor value 7 throughout most of the team. You're looking at a need to kind of throw it around.
Right.
Chesda, which I believe was number 3. I could be wrong. Chesda, sorry, number 4. Sabnor was number 3, so the number 3 and number 4 spot in this roster. Chesda actually picked up a good 68 points last season. So
that's pretty good.
A really good character. You're probably going to pick up probably no less than 5 every game with her. But again, we're looking at that injury. You will, if you pick her and you waste an early, if you use an early draft pick with her, you will not get to use her points in the first one. So I would pick up somebody else that has consistent points.
Right.
Another player with the 69 points instead of 68 is Sabnor, number 3 last season. This is a War Dancer. She's got 2 War Dancers. This one's the brand new one coming up. Another good pick, most likely. But when it comes to the War Dancers, it's kind of the same thing. They are very skilled at throwing. They're very good at catching, scoring, and can even beat up pretty well. They're considered one of the best players in the game.
Right, because she's definitely known to use them as a cage breaker, which means she's going to be attacking with them, and is at the same time, with that Nerves of Steel on a character like that, you know that's going to be a high percentage receiver as well. Yep.
And if you're looking for somebody to put a consistent beat down, Sturdywood might be a good choice. 36 points last season. All of that coming from crushing.
Right, and getting that grab, block, and multiple block together is going to make it for a bad time for the opponents. Yeah, you're looking at very consistent smashing into the ground. Very strong character. Moving up to the Stalking Dead.
This is a team that is going to be very difficult to deduce who to draft from here. There are going to be players that are going to be sleepers in this roster.
Right, and that's the trouble with something like this is exactly which ones you're going to go for. Now, the mummies are going to be your Bashi, and your Rights and your Ghouls are probably going to be your ball carriers. So especially that white with the 4 agility, the heightened agility, probably going to be somebody who's carrying the ball a little bit.
Yeah, it's his highest agility, which, for all of you that don't know anything about Blood Bowl, agility is your ability to handle the ball or to get out of harm's way. So that high agility, it means that he's going to likely be doing a lot of ball handling, which means a lot of rushing yards and potentially a lot of scoring.
Right, so the agility factors into picking up the ball, catching the ball, throwing the ball, or dodging away from danger.
Yep. His best player last season, according to Fantasy Stats, was Limb Chewer the Ghoul with 43 points, 9 coming from scoring, 6 from passing, 26 from rushing, and 2 from brutalizing.
Nice.
So good even there. I see that both Pebble Feeder and Limb Chewer continuing to rake in points, along with White Power and Helmet the Mutilator.
Right, and this is a good example of a new coach, a new team, and just getting a feel for his players. So I think that any sort of success that you've seen early will be repeated, especially a level 2 ghoul is only going to get more powerful as he advances, especially if he's already kind of a favorite for the coach. He's going to go.
Yep. And despite the armor value 7, both of them, he has decided to give them a block and dodge, without going into it, makes them very defendable. It makes it very difficult for players to bring them down. They're slippery and strong. So despite the armor value 7, it's going to be hard to put them down.
Like it.
And just to go back to what we were mentioning before, Rock Mobster, his original mummy, got 27 points, all from brutalizing last season. So if you're looking for a big guy to maybe give some consistent small points, that might be a good guy. And Gangsta Rap coming up, picked him up at the very end of last season. So you can see about the same amount of points from Gangsta Rap as you see from Rock Mobster's first season. Rock Mobster, and with this ability guard, going to make Gangsta Rap a lot more powerful.
Right, and that's that strength 5 means that he's going to be able to get odds to injure somebody, to at least knock somebody his opponent down. So that's going to be a good indicator of a good Bashi player, the Brutalizer style.
Yep. Looking at the next one, we got Rhea Wookin from Gestured TG. Another newer coach with a team going into their second season. This is going to suffer from a lot of the unknowns that the Stalking Dead suffer from, because we're looking at players just getting to their performance stride.
Right. Once you get into that level 2, level 3, specifically, once you've kind of figured out where that guy's going to go, in your team, then he's going to have a defined role, and once he has a defined role, then you can make some expectations or anticipations based on that.
Yep, Graw was his star player last season, the Ghoul, with 46 points, 9 from scoring, 9 from passing, 26 from rushing, and 2 from brutalizing.
Yep, super good.
So yeah, very strong player to look at. Then we got 24 and 23 is Haru and Awoo, his 2 werewolves. These are characters with insane amounts of movement, so you can see them be important in every game. At every time the ball is on the pitch, they're going to be right next to that ball.
Right. Plus the claw for higher armor value opponents, and that frenzy means they get a second go at attacking every time that they hit somebody.
Yep, and he just picked up block on both of them, which means they're going to be a lot more successful at not only putting people down, but harder to put down themselves. So you're probably going to see a lot more ball handling from the werewolves, and you're also probably going to see a lot more damage caused by them. So their scores are only going to go higher.
Great stuff.
For the most part, the rest of the team was below average. You're looking at things like zombies, the same thing in the Stalking Dead. If you can avoid it, probably don't waste high draft picks on zombies. These are not players that are good. They're going into more mumbo-jumbo. They're the 0 to 16 of this team. So.
Right, and that's I guess what we say is zombies are the cannon fodder, so don't expect them to do much, and don't expect them to live long.
But they could always get that one kill that sets you over, and you're going to be sad that you didn't put them on the line.
Agreed.
Looking at last season's winner, the Corsairs, coached by Master Moose. They have Kaiser Francis Drake. He was the highest scoring in the fantasy totals of the entire league, getting 99 points.
Yeah, and he deserved it. He was all over every match.
Yep. A whole lot. The way it broke down for him was 33 in scoring, 11 in passing, 52 in rushing, and 3 in brutalizing. So
yeah, and he's going to be doing a lot of that. With that dump off means that he has the option to throw a pass when it's the opponent's turn. He can be targeted for a block and then throw the ball. So he doesn't even have to use his action to do that.
I see, despite him being such a high level, I do see him still needing to be relied on, at least for the first half of the season. Because a lot of his other players are lagging behind, and the way he's built this character, he's kind of the linchpin for the entire team to get their points as well.
Yeah, because those other two catchers are much less successful without him on the pitch as the primary receiver, getting most of the attention, and then having the ability for his thrower, who probably had quite a few points as well, no?
Yeah, Dolphin actually had 54 points last season. He was doing a lot. Most of his points coming from passing at 28.
Yep, and then having the other two catchers as backups to Kaiser Francis Drake.
Yep.
That's where you're going to get that. So now that he has that high-value player out there, he can use that to get some more advancement in those other two catchers. So I think any of his catchers plus that thrower are going to be really, really good choices.
Yeah, Dolphin's going to be a really good pick because you're going to start seeing a lot of the teams get the other teams that he's going against getting stronger. So running straight a running game is not going to work as well as it did last season. He's going to have to focus more on creating pockets, throwing the ball over the strong line, and getting a touchdown. So that thrower, I would perceive him getting more points than he did last season. Also looking at, we got Baron Bartholomew Roberts, a blitzer that managed to get 59 points for him.
That's crazy.
And it's an elf, so you would imagine it to be a lot of scoring, right?
Yeah.
9 in scoring, -2 in passing, 8 in rushing, but 44 points in brutalizing.
I think that shadowing had a lot to do with that.
Well,
plus that block.
I was about to say, the shadowing just keeps him close. It doesn't give him the points for any injuries that come from it.
Oh, that's a good point, huh?
Yeah, so you're talking about a character who is a scalpel. He's moving in there and injuring players consistently.
That's pretty good.
I think it's a good combination between block and tackle and choosing targets.
Yeah, for sure.
Baron Bartholomew Roberts is probably one of the highest picks that I would have just because his consistent murder fest.
That's wild.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was a little befuddled. I was like, I can't believe an elf blitzer did that.
That's pretty good, though, huh?
Yeah, that's very good. Again, like he was saying, catchers. Catchers are going to be the main money makers, but really anybody in this team can do what the other players can. It's just the catchers are made to do it.
Right.
And the coach is extremely reliable.
Yeah, super precision when it comes to everything, like rules and techniques and style inside and out.
Exactly. And last but not least, we have Mallos Masters, coached by Sam Vaughn. This is probably the trickiest team to draft from.
Because every player is outstandingly positioned to do a lot of damage.
Yep, this is probably going to be the thickest roster of sleepers.
Yeah, and you don't know who you're going to get on this. The question, I guess, is going to be who did he do most of his scoring with last season, and do you think he's going to do a lot of scoring with them again this season?
That is a very loud ambulance.
Yeah, sorry.
You're good. So the highest scoring that he had last season was Scratchy. Scratchy was his strength 4 beastman. So that's probably that scoring is what got him to strength 2. I don't know if he's going to stay as a designated scorer this time around.
Yeah.
But we can see other things coming from him. His bonuses being that he's going to be strength 4, strength 5 on the charge, so he can do damage.
Right. He's going to be involved.
And you could probably expect with that high strength that the coach might want to feed him more star player points to get him blocked soon. So an early draft pick on Scratchy, if you're willing to make the gambit, you might be able to get a couple wins early on as this guy's getting fed for touchdowns.
Right.
But highest points was in this team was 20 for the fantasy, and that was Scratchy. Everybody else was lower than the season average.
What was Rabid Ray? How did he do?
Rabid Ray was at a 13. So,
okay, and what did he get?
Mostly was rushing with 8 points. So he got 1 point brutalizing, 1 point passing, and 3 points scoring. So he got a touchdown. Again, the low points is attributed to a new team, and this is a kind of team that is very difficult to start with. So he has his engines running now, so any of these players could go off.
Right. These are going to be some of the folks that you're going to want to keep in the back of your mind and watch closely to see where he goes with this team and try to get ahead of everybody else. Once he kind of picks a direction or picks a favorite player, get on that because it's going to happen.
Yep. And then if you happen to, just decide that you're going to put your bucks and a late draft pick on one of these guys, it may go great for you.
Yep, good call.
Yep. So don't be afraid of this team when drafting, despite the numbers. I think this is going to be a team that's going to show the most sleepers.
Good.
But that's basically it for this. Do you have any suggestions for the up-and-coming fantasy coaches?
No, I think that the good thing to do is you're going to need to get a basic understanding of how Blood Bowl works and watch some of the games that we've posted last season to see how the players go about doing their business. And we made a lot of commentary on things to look out for, things to avoid for the coaches, and see how they've kind of grown up. And it's going to be a good determination of what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to go about it. Just like anything, the more investment and the more time that you put into it, the better it's going to be. Otherwise, I hope this was educational, and this will help you with your draft picks. And I hope to see you very soon. And I guess that's it.
All right. Catch you later.
Later.